on the person who says this isn't even a series. ELFI did so much damage with those oracles that it got so scary for JJAKJI, and JJAKJI still managed to turn around. You call that not exciting? I say go to League of Legends or something. That was a pretty good game. Let's be honest, it was a little bit one-sided towards the end, but fought very well through the course of it. We'll see how game number 2 goes. If you guys are unfamiliar with Game Heart, score from now to the end of the cast today will always be described down here, because it's going to be best of 3 into an either best of 3 or best of 5 finals, as it's up for the players to decide. At any rate, spawning in the top left corner of the map in game number 2 of the quarterfinals of the Go4SC2 Monday Premium Cup, it's going to be the blue Protoss player, ELFI. And his opponent in the lower left, playing for my insanity, up 1 at the moment. It's going to be the red Terran player, JJAKJI. And of course, in a best of 3 scenario, being up 1 is always a very comforting thing to feel. As you know, you're one win away from just winning everything. For those who don't know, by the way, the Go4SC2 Monday Premium Cup has a surprisingly small prize pool, €75. 50 for the first place winner, 25 for the second. Not a big deal in that regard, but what you do win from this cup is pretty much almost guaranteed seeding into the monthly finals, which is worth €600, which is quite a lot. And you can play the Thursday one, you get points. There's kind of a leaderboard on the ESL website you guys can always check out. Exclamation mark brackets will take you to the brackets. From there you can navigate to the Go4SC2 points. But again, a small bit of money in your pocket. But what's interesting, what I'd love to know, like, it's just like a fact, guys, not opinion, is there are players who straight up state on a regular basis, like, the prize is nice, but they come for the competition and for the practice. Because let's be honest, guys, JJAKJI versus ELFI could meet on the ladder 100 times, but without money attached to it, without some sort of prize attached to it, it's not going to be as fierce, and no one's going to be trying as hard as they do in these sort of cups. Anyways, 1 probe from ELFI we'll get here really quickly. Luckily, scouts the base of JJAKJI, but unfortunately, it's not like this was meant for any cheese. So without cannon, Russian coming down, or some proxy gateways, it's not that big of a deal. Just a nice little scout early on. ELFI is, of course, Gateway expanded. I don't know a lot of Protoss players who do anything but Gateway expand now, because you need the Mothership Core to deal with Reapers appropriately. It's no fun dealing with them, and there are some players out there, like JJAKJI, like Polt, who will do like 5 racks Reaper against Protoss players if given that opportunity. Now, that's not happening here, and it probably won't happen anytime soon. It's more of a selective strategy against people who, you know a Protoss player plays greedy. Now, ELFI's sticking 2-2 on gas, so at the moment this leaves the option for a Stargate up there, but chances are he's looking to get the Mothership Core out to go for that quicker expansion, to take that natural base and try and get his economy booming ASAP. Now, actually, oddly enough, we got the Reaper paired up here with the SCV coming back home. I guess he couldn't find the probe, so he wants to pick off the one here. I was going to say, typically this Reaper goes all the way to the other base, but wants to make sure that he picks off this probe. Kind of a big deal, because it means that there's not going to be any more proxies coming out of this probe. He can't throw down pylons anywhere, and it'll keep JJAKJI safe against ELFI in that regard. I mean, he yields a little bit of scouting information, and I say yields very hesitantly, because it's not a big deal. You can always come back in your scout later. Actually, you know, that's a big point. I've seen a lot on Team Liquid, and I've seen a lot on Reddit, where people are like, oh, is it so easy as a Terran player to scout? You know, you just scan all day, but Terran players then counter-argue with, like, you can't really afford to scan, you have to drop mules, your economy takes a hit otherwise, so you have to rely on the Reaper. And the problem is, this one Reaper can get shut down pretty easily. That's why players like JJAKJI will, and if you watch him, on a regular basis, keep his SCV out somewhere on the map, so that if the Reaper goes down, he can always scout a little bit later. He's not looking to do anything cheeky with this. He's not trying to go for a hidden base, and he's not proxying a factory. This is simply being kept alive to scout for later. He's checking for pylons with it at the time being, and of course, with that Reaper, just being very bold. Let's see what he scouted. Saw the Forge, saw the Nexus. In the end, not a crazy amount. Marines coming across the map like this are going to be limited on what they can do. With the Sentry's not going to actually help too much. Maybe it throws down a force field, maybe it goes for a Guardian Shield, one way or another, versus small amounts of Marines. The DPS from the Sentry is probably going to be a lot better than his actual skills. Let's be honest, the DPS from the Sentry is kind of crap. But the Oracle, or not the Oracle, the Zealot combined with the Mothership Core certainly has the damage to deal with 5-6 Marines. Does not want to have to burn an overcharge here, of course, but may be forced to, as he's trying to split his attention here. He's looking for that Reaper. But it's not the Reaper that's the threat, it's the 6 Marines marching in to pick off some probes. Now, he can kill a Mothership Core with this. He's actually going to go for the pylon. That's a bit cute. 8 Marines now in total. does in fact bait out the overcharge with this. That is kind of huge. This is not a push or a poke that really should have, but ELFI, perhaps a little paranoid and a little bit scary, didn't want to have to deal with whatever JJAKJI sends at him. Now because of this, he's actually not going to have 2 overcharges for later on. So a push at the front door and a drop in the main is going to be a little bit more deadly to deal with. Ooh, that sucks. What ELFI was trying to do just now is quite key. I'll talk about that in a moment. But JJAKJI coming back for the scout. Again, you see him not trying to dive for probes because that's not what he needs. He needed that information, knowing the Robo Bay was coming up. Now the Reaper valiantly gives its life for the cause to see that Colossus are coming out rather quickly, which means JJAKJI's got a poke now. He knows that ELFI doesn't have like 9 gateways down. He knows ELFI doesn't have the production to really deal with this, and more importantly, he knows there's only 1 overcharge available, so that'll buy him about a minute of time at most. There's no medevacs with this, so he can't just pick up and drop. Stim pack's almost done. As soon as Stim finishes, that'll probably be his cue to push. I don't think he'll get the Mothership Core before the overcharge goes off, and force fields here and here will lock units into the base to make sure that the overcharge gets damage done. But as we see ELFI a little bit scared with this, he doesn't quite know where to go. Where's that observer? He's an observer somewhere on the map. If he had an observer properly in the base, watching what was going on right now, he'd know where and what to react with. Now, while 1 Colossus coming out right now is a little bit scary to look at, you guys have to consider, without extended thermal lance, Marauders have the exact same range as the Colossus, so he can very easily stim into that Colossus and knock it down when there's only 1 of them, and quite frankly, no cannon fodder to protect it. 3 Zealots and a couple force fields are all that he's going to have to separate this Colossus from JJAKJI's army. The overcharge is going to run out any second now, which will, quite frankly, prompt JJAKJI to push and poke again anyways. And with the medevacs following this up, it's going to be harder and harder to hold for ELFI. Now, as we see, he scans the Colossus and backs away immediately. He does not, it's worth noting, guys, he did not burn a stim right there. Not scared enough to run away in full, but smart enough to back away and take a fight a little bit later on. And of course, if you stim this many units this early on, especially with no medevac support, it's very difficult to heal all that damage back up. So, in a pretty good spot right now is JJAKJI, I'd have to say. He's on 3 bases, or will be here in a moment. And medevac's coming out. +1 will finish up in a moment's time. Combat shield's incredibly delayed, but that's okay because combat shields are not the important part of this. Stim pack is. Well, trying to circumvent the army. Unfortunately, ELFI will not see this drop coming until it's too late. So already going to the base, pulls his entire force to react. JJAKJI counting on this. Oh, this isn't enough, I don't think. 1 Colossus? JJAKJI could stim into that, but chooses not to. Takes the Colossus out in the main instead. Force fields were not quite good enough to keep these forces back. Picks up, just drops over top of them. Now moving towards the main. If he picks off that thermal lance, if he picks off that stim, or sorry, not stim, the +1 or +2 armor, that could be huge, but forced to take a bit of an awkward fight in some very close quarters. ELFI has had to abandon his natural, guys. Driven too much, too crazy, too fast. Good game is going to be called, and JJAKJI will 2-0 ELFI and move on to the semifinals, where he will fight the winner of Froz versus Tefl.